Now it's time to texture everything. And maybe for this exercise, we can simply start with the soul. So, similar to the issue with the lace, I will first, before I go really into materials, set up my render environment so it's a little bit more usable. And for this, I will move my soul to a different layer. So when I do a rendering, I don't have to calculate everything else all the time. And I will turn off all my booleans here for the moment because I would like to work on the material first. So let's simply add a big plane, and then maybe this plane I move back, X and R, rotate and R, no, R and X, not X and R, there. Okay, and then this we will turn into a light. So we can actually see something, and here, let's turn this off. Okay, good. Maybe in this case, let's go this way. Good. So this maybe should be a very basic, let's say, a rubber sole that's partially translucent. So we can go to the node editor. Okay, go to the object, select our part. Oops, that was the wrong object. There, okay. So first, maybe we can give this a color. Let's say this should be maybe kind of like a brownish tone. Maybe like this. Okay. And this makes it very diffuse. But let's say this should be a flexible, partially translucent material, then we have to mix this with a translucent modifier, not modifier, material. So let's throw in the translucent one there. And we can drag this one over. Let's take a look how this one looks translucent and, for example, shaded. Yeah. So you see with the translucent value added to it, the shadows get a little bit softer. Well, we don't really have any reflection on it. Right now it's pretty, I would say, dull. So let's add another mixer. And then we can add a glossy. And for the moment, let's make this strong. And we should add also our layer weight based on how much we would this reflection to come in there. And this is also too strong. So math node there, 0.2. So just a tint of shininess. Because the object is reflective, but it is also structured. So that's the next thing that's actually missing. I have to add a structure to this object, because currently it looks like a polished material. So what I can do is I probably will work with the noise element here. And I will, before I really go into the bump mapping, take a look at the noise pattern, because I actually would like this pattern to be first nice and round, and then I will stretch it a little bit. So maybe let's go to object, and then we can see when we adjust the scale how big, for example, these dots are. So I would maybe like to stretch these dots so I have more lines as a bump. So I can add now the mapping node there. And then this is X, so along X, maybe 2. Okay, that was the wrong one. Then actually along there. Or 3. Yeah, so let's take a look if this works. Let's make this one 4. Doesn't really work the way how I want. Maybe 0.2. Ah, there. There it is. Okay. And maybe here we can increase the number so we compress it along the vertical direction a little bit. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. So let's see how this one could work as a bump map. So this one I will copy, drag into the displays, and then this one I drag over to the input value 0.01. Let's click now this material output so we can see now the structure of that sole turning out. And this is actually pretty good. So you see again different material outputs. I would like to only see how this texture looks like on my object, and then here this material output helps me then to really see how the full material would look like. And what did I do here? No, this is actually this makes sense. Yeah, so this is okay. I just confused for a second. So 0.1, maybe make it a little bit more diffused, not so glossy. Yeah, so that's like a good start. And then with the scale factor, I can continue working. So maybe 0.1 and maybe 6. See, I can adjust those further and further. Maybe 0.2, leave it there. Okay. So you see I just placed my light and then rotate my view around, so at one point I can see everything the way I want. Maybe the bump mapping could be a tick stronger. Small value increase. This is maybe too big. 0.5. Yeah. Okay. So not too bad. So how would this, however, look like when we, for example, cut out the, or add first maybe the sole part? In this case here, I simply added a union command to show this part of the detail. So I do not have to always switch the layers. Yeah, it's not too bad, works. And we can maybe take a look at heal idea 2. When we cut this one out. Yeah, well, maybe I will leave it this way. Okay, so you see it's not too bad. And maybe in case we would like to have a different noise material, maybe just to see how this would look like, just with dots. So we could do it this way, there. And so I use the same input here, but then from there I have to swap this one out. So this one goes there. You see, this one is more like a roughed up surface. Maybe too big, so we can maybe just change this to 1000. And there you get a smaller, kind of like a skin texture. Okay, so that's for the sole. Small variation. Let's say for the lower part where we added this element, we would like a different material to be added. We can actually do this by maybe selecting all this, and let's see if maybe the geometry already allows us to do it. Oh yeah, it does. So you see, this way we could make it look like there is a different material glued under with the structure. Obviously, as you can see, the material doesn't match, so probably what we will have to do, let's see if this renders out. Yeah, it renders out with the wrong material. So in that case, let's say this is sole 2, and let's go to sole 2. there. So this actually then has to have the same material. So that when we cut into the object, also the material remains the same. There, perfect. There you see it. If we want to be a little bit more precise with the way how we cut, you see currently this is not really something that looks good. We then actually could do something like this. So we will use a small plane which we can lift up and then intersect it, and we will have to do the following. So this one I simply remove, then also, so the calculation for the moment is faster, I turn those modifiers off. Okay, and I will make a linked copy. Where is it? Duplicate linked. Okay, and keep it where it is. Because with this object, the sole I can remove, but actually this will be our split command, and I move this one above, and this will be difference, and cut this one out. Let's take a look. Okay, so then this shows should be the heel, so let's do an intersect, so we see the opposite. Okay, and then with this part here, this we can remove, and this we can remove because this again will be a split, and we will select again this plane there. So now you see we have two different objects, but this one gets actually the zigzag heel cut out. Okay, great. So wherever I put now this plane, when I move this one up, I can increase or decrease these two different objects. And because they're two different objects, but they use the same mesh, they remain the same, but I can give them individual materials. So I could, for example, now go ahead and say object. I would like this to have a unique material, new. So I would actually like to have the same material definition for both, but swap out the materials as needed. So what I will do is this I will select and turn into a group. And then this group we call maybe sole basic. Okay. And inside this group, you see I have also input and output points. And there you will see I move actually these points out. And then in here I can give them a name. So the first color is actually diffuse. And then the second color is translucent. Okay, you see now these colors. Perfect. So here I will delete this, turn it in the group, make no there, and surface and surface. Okay, so in this case here I only have to connect this BSDF, that is actually this other material output. You can see I have two different outputs here, so ignore that BSDF. This surface is all what we need. And now I can, I think if I override the color here, yeah, see it does not change. So I can now in this tab give, for example, the heel somewhat, let's say maybe we give this a sand color. And do we still have that light? No, but first this actually we would like to turn off so it does not show up inside the rendering. So I don't have to hide it, I can simply keep it there. Let's make this a wire. And let's do a render. And okay, because I deleted my light, let's bring this one back. But there now you can see that we have the same material, the same bump. Actually, we do not have the same bump. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that makes sense because this value has to go to there. I forgot to connect it. So the bump mapping is actually the same for both materials. We just overwrite then the material color for each. Okay. Perfect. So let's do maybe this weight material now. Okay, good. So maybe weight there. Going to edit mode, press U to unwrap, but we don't really know how this unwrapped. So let's go to the UV editor, and then there we can see it. Okay, so maybe for the moment this might look okay, but what I would like to do first is make all these meshes unwrapped scale-wise the same. So I will create myself a basic UV test image. Okay, and there you can see it, and then I will insert this image as a texture and UV test. There it is. Okay, and let's take a look at the texture and material. And there's one of these reasons why I don't actually know why this doesn't show up now. Not sure if I have a setting. I haven't figured that out yet. This is actually new to me, but not a big deal. We can also do a test render quickly. Now we can see it. Okay, so things look fine. Let's do the same with here, A and U, and then this maybe should be the same material. And there we can see, size-wise, that's not a good idea. So AA in edit mode, let's scale this one down. So I try to scale it so that the size of my squares are roughly the same. Maybe like this. Okay, good. Next material here, AA, U, and unwrap. Also there, this will be way too big. So maybe like this. Okay, and then the last object, this will be my shoe body, U, and unwrap. So this is actually the biggest object. So also here, weight there. So I cannot actually scale this one down. You see everything gets the texture gets bigger. So what I will do in this case is simply I will scale my other objects till the squares are the same. So that actually works out really well. Also there. Okay. And there. So in case we would all use this weight material there. Okay, good, perfect. Everything is unwrapped to a size, so in case it would use the same fabric or leather or material, it will look on each piece exactly the same size, because you do not want that on one piece the leather looks really tiny, on the other one it looks really big. Good. So this was just for this UV testing. So I can now actually, whoops, not disconnected. I can load now the actual fabric material. So I have here somewhere a suede gray and load this one in. So there now you can see how it looks everywhere, a little bit too big. So I have to scale this one down maybe. And we can go texture coordinate, and then we have to use the mapping. Drag this one in, connect to the vector, and then we can increase the number there. Okay, let's rotate around and see if we see any seams. And it seems to be quite tileable. Perfect, maybe 4 to make it a tick smaller. Oh, there's some tiling that actually happens there. So let's go with 3. Don't really see it there as much. So I think that fabric material I use here right now is not 100% tileable, but it's not too noticeable. So for the moment we can keep it. Okay, good. So the back and the main object, they have the same color. So my curiosity now is, can I maybe tone this fabric material by simply using this image texture? So maybe let's make this one an orange there, and maybe a different orange. This one maybe has to be darker. And yeah, so I can do it. So think about it as if you have a leather and then we just dye it. So as you can see, this works quite good. And maybe we want to do the same also for the inside. So here, there. So this would now actually turn into the inside and the outside being the same material, which is not necessarily what I want. So my curiosity now is, or question, how could I break this object up into different elements so I can use it to texture everything with the same image, but then override the colors on a per object basis. So essentially only these 2 color inputs are what I need to get out. So I could select these 2, Control G, and then my color inputs I have to drag out. So I have here now these 2 elements, and I will click one time here on the 10 because for my inside object or surface I would like to have a separate material. And then here I can go ahead and, for example, give this a different color. There. So you see they both use the same texture, but then they use different color values to tint it. And if I go ahead and, for example, here say, well, maybe 2 and 2, because this is done inside a group, it also applies to the inside material here. Really nice. So the suede is a rather, let's say, flat material, but maybe we would like to add a little bit of glossiness to it. And we can do this inside our node group again. So I can add a glossy and then add the mix shader, add this one, and then I will add my layer weight, move this one in, 0.2, and this really should be a kind of rough, kind of want some shininess on it, and maybe this is currently too much. This looks more like a printed surface with a clear coat, so we will add maybe a math node and tune it down a little bit. Okay, so that is not too bad. And yeah, we need some bumpiness as well. So yeah, we do this. duplicate. From this image, we feed it into one math node. This one has to be low, obviously. Then we drag this one out. So just to know what this one does, this value, this is maybe, well, we can call this one displace. And then we press tab. We can drag this one into there. And let's zoom in and take a look how this works. Maybe 0.1. Okay, it seems not to do what I hoped it would do. Set this to 0 and feed this one into there so it is nice and glossy. Multiply color, texture, yeah, so this actually should work. Odd. Let me try one thing out. I will Control C, copy those, and then here Control V, paste them in, because I'm curious if maybe that's the reason for it. So no, it's not. Drag this one in. Interesting. I am such a nerd. I'm all the time working on the inside material. Wah, wah. So, super smart. Delete and click on the outside there. Zip, let's connect it, and there it is. Oh. Beat myself. There. So obviously this has to be rather low. Just should add a little bit of roughness to it, and that roughness we add then will enhance also the blurriness of our suede material. So this is maybe not enough there, and maybe 0.4 so it's nice and diffuse, and maybe 0.1, yeah, and from a distance now we can get maybe this feeling of there's a little bit of glossiness and structure over it. Okay, and the quality of that result is really based on how good your image is. I might have to look for a different weight material. You see the size was too small. I need to increase this one. With a 6, actually this works better. Now the structure seems to be more realistic. It was previously just too big, but now I get some undesirable tiling here. So I have to look for a different pattern. Thankfully, because we set up a node system that shares material definitions, we can easily just swap out different materials and then see if they work. And this one actually works a tick better. So we don't have that really annoying tiling effect. We can work with the scale a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. Just one moment without the glossiness. Okay, 0.25, 0.1, maybe make this a little bit rougher. 0, 1. Okay, something doesn't work here for the moment. Oh, displace. There. 0.1, 0.01, 0.005. Okay, yeah. And this should be rough. Okay, good. Now the shininess right now is a little bit strong, but we don't really have a render scene yet, so for the moment I leave it actually at this, because then when we put this onto a backdrop with a light on top, it might actually look better. But this is basically the first building block. Okay, so I also I have a small front element, and this part I would like to colorize as well. So maybe here I rename this one tip, and here then maybe there I simply make maybe everything a little bit brighter, so you can see that something was changed. Okay, nice, good. Let's take a look at this together with the soul. Yeah, you can see it's getting somewhere. Nice. This element here, maybe I do not want to be this material, but maybe a fabric. So new, and let's add a texture. No, color to color. There, open. And I think I have some fabric materials here, maybe a linen. Let's say this should be a stretchable object. So the soul for the moment I hide. Let's add back a light. Actually, I can put this one on top, similar to the way how I would render it. So a nice floodlight from the top down, rather soft. And maybe this one 0.025. Okay, good. Oh, you see now the suede texture comes out much better. It's a little bit too big. This feels like plastic right now, it's too glossy. Well, let's focus on this part first. So there's our pattern. So I could go ahead and either in UV mode scale the mesh back up, which I don't necessarily want to do. Because in case I want to go back and turn this back into like a suede material or so, then the scale is different. I simply add a mapping node and then here scale this one to what I need, like this. Okay, now this is not too bad. But now I would like this to be the same tinted material like my fabric. So how do I do this? So GG, and then mix RGB, and this should be the non-color, it goes to there. So how do I get these colors fed? Okay, so let's select this part here, and I will add two material inputs. Sorry, color inputs, these two. Drag and drag, and this and this. So these two RGBs override whatever goes into the color, and these two now I can actually Control G, turn also into a group. So this maybe I will call color, just colors there. Okay. Now if I select my linen part, Shift A, Control, and then I will bring in the color. You see I can drag these two to there. So I globally now adjust the material. So if I go into edit mode and maybe say, well, be this, you see everything updates. Pretty nice. Try to do this with a different engine that doesn't allow you to share values this way. Now, when this should be fabric, we need a little bit of glossy shininess over it. So glossy mix shader, plug this one in there, and then we want to have a math node for the bump. So there, multiply and drag it in. Way too big. 0.01, 0.001, Yeah. And then I only would like this maybe to be on some of the tips. So a little bit stronger, okay. And we need to have a mix. So the layer weight, lower value, plug this one in. And then this one I can plug to there, multiply, but actually by this material. And no, this seems to be okay. So from the top, it's not very reflective, and when we get closer, or not closer, rotated, it feels like it's a little bit more reflective. But this is not ideal, so maybe let's do this, the RGB curve, put this in, and this one maybe we put to there, so we get more some of these highlights on top of the threading. Whoops. There, clamp it to tick more. Let's observe how this feels just without the base color. Yeah, okay, good. So from a distance, it feels like a nice woven material, and there are some highlights on top. Okay. Now we should do our stitches. I have all the stitches here on this layer. All those stitches are clones, so they all share the same geometry, which means if I give one material to one stitch object, they all get the same material. So stitches, whoops, correct spelling. Let's maybe colorize it so we can see it. They all share the same stuff. By the way, this is actually the same stitch. I simply gave it a scale factor. So as you can see, the stitch simply looks smaller, but it uses the same geometry. And now I would like to make this diffuse and glossy, so it has a little bit of shininess. Layer weight there, the mix shader there, and let's drive the color. We can maybe we can do it this way, mix RGB. Yeah, we should maybe. Yeah, that's a question now. Let's see how we do it. Group and colors. So number 1 and number 2. So currently the outcome will be these two colors 50-50 mixed together, or one color or the other color. So we don't really mix between, how could I say that, with a texture, these two images. Currently we just uniformly mix them together like they were liquid. But then you can decide if you want maybe the opposite, so the darker tone or the brighter tone, or maybe a mix 50-50 of each, so they blend in. And then maybe we want to have another math node there with the multiply, so we can control more the strength of the reflectivity, not really normal reflective, or maybe 0.5, so there's a little bit of shininess on them. Yeah, not bad. Let's take a look if maybe we could quickly refine the material. Yeah, so the bump has to be stronger. Okay, and maybe this has to be weaker. 0.2. Let's remove this for the moment so I can see it better. 0.1. 0.2 is okay. Put this back. Okay. Yeah, and maybe let's see. Put this in. Does this look better? Oh yeah, this actually looks better. Let's do it this way. There. And this is too strong, so we will plug a multiply in between and cut the strength down. So now you see we have actually small reflective patterns of that suede material right over the diffuse that look, so it makes it look like the hills are slightly illuminated. And then we also add the bump mapping to it. Still looks a little bit too plastic, so 0.3, maybe tune it down a tick. And this value I would like to delete and delete there. Okay, good, perfect. Well, so far so good. It's time to do a little bit of detailing. This edge is a little bit too strong. So what I will do is this uses the solidify modifier. What happens if we move this one up and then we get this? Well, let's see. If we bring Control R, add a new loop cut. So what will happen to that? So let's select these two objects, Shift H, so we can render quicker. And that is not good because, as you can see, that actually changes our structure. So let's remove this. We have sharp edges. So what happens if we add actually a really tiny bevel at the end, so 0.1 millimeters, maybe a few steps. Let's see. Yeah, that actually works. So 0.5 millimeters. There. Now, obviously, if you get really close, you can see this is terrible. But again, from a distance, you can't really see it. So in this way, it doesn't look like a razor sharp material, but more like something that is, how could I say that? Yeah, like rounded. Okay, so I think maybe at this point we can go into talking about how to approach the rendering. So the easiest way, to be honest, to figure out how to do renderings for shoes is go Google and look up product images or photos to see how they are illuminated. If you want to have a high contrast or if you want to have a very soft lighting, it's all up to you to decide. For this exercise here, I will use a very simple backdrop. E here, make it bigger, there. Let's create a light slider, put on top, maybe a little bit wider. This maybe I bring over a little bit so I have more of a rounded angle. We can bevel this with the angle command. Maybe, whoops, 10 steps. That's sufficient to change the size so it's a bigger rounding, and this profile is terrible, so maybe a 0.7. Then we can increase the size even more. That's shaded, smooth. Okay, well, we should add a camera at this point, obviously. And there. Okay, let's move the camera G and ZZ, so we can zoom in actually. G and Z to move it down. Let's draw a selection. And I will now split this view so I can see my camera result. And here we'll go into a top view so I can see my world outcome. And then this object, this should be the light there. And it's rendering, and take a look. And there you see, we get a really nice light from the top. So World is running, so I turn this one off. And maybe 0.5, you see, very soft. If we set this to 0, it's completely gone. 2, it's a pretty bright image. Then we can move this one down. You see it gets even brighter. So the bigger the surface, you see the softer the lights, but also the more the uniform the lighting. You see now actually I made the light a little bit smaller, and it seems like there's more light coming from a point and doesn't flood everything. Here it seems like too washed out, because what happens, the light is also illuminating the sides because the light source is so big. And I don't really necessarily like this result, so I scale this one down till I get a little bit more shadowing here. Like this. This is not too bad. Maybe I can bring this one even to the back to shoot more light from there. And let's see what happens if we bring a little bit of background lighting back. Too much maybe. We could also maybe Shift D, reset this one. I want this all to be 30 centimeters and 30 centimeters, so it's more a small flat plane. Rotate it, bring it to there, hide this. So I will send in a little bit light, kind of like from this corner. Ideally, we want to make this a light material on its own, so light left. And then we also have the light top. So maybe this one now we can give more light strength there if you want to. So it's up to you how you want to play with the lighting. From the side you see it casts more light onto this rim. Maybe from the back. Be careful that you don't bring the light so close that it starts illuminating your background too much. And maybe the camera angle we can make it a little bit more flatter there. So let's see what happens if we move this one over to there and rotate it. Blah. Don't like it. Maybe like this. Could keep it. Right, so that's all I see. And maybe I will add one light here. Let's rotate it there. Maybe from the corner, but maybe not so strong. Maybe two. Nah, I can continue playing with it. So far, so good. However, as you can see, there's one tiny issue. Our shoe is not rotated correctly. The heel is flush, but the front area is floating. And we also only have one shoe, which is not what I want either. I want both. So I moved all objects I will use for rendering, including the Boolean objects, which I will use for cutting. You see I turned off all the ray visibilities and turned them into a wire mesh. Same with here. I moved everything onto one layer. And then I can, for example, for proper rotation, I can keep it this way if I want to. Let's take one look. This is slightly rotated. Okay, so I will parent everything now to this blue object. Control P, object, select this one, set this to 0. This is actually the original orientation for all my parts. And then with everything selected, I will make a duplicate linked. I have to wait a second because it has to update the Boolean operation. Press escape because we don't want to move it. M, and I go to layer 8, so I have a different layer. So for quicker rotation, I for the moment simply turn my split off. I also did proper naming, so sole top, sole heel detail. This, for example, projects onto sole top. And now I can select the main body, so the parent, and press Ctrl M and Y. That mirrors it along the y-axis. Or I can also simply here say -1. That mirrors the object. And instantly everything nearly works well, besides some elements that are confused, but it's just an artifact. Edit mode, object mode fixes it. And we can take a look at this, turn the split on, and we will unfortunately end up with this. So there is a problem. Unfortunately, this doesn't work really well. So how do we fix this? Well, first I can select everything, and then I can press Alt, maybe with this one, Alt P. So I clear the parent link and say keep transformation. So the object remains where it is. And I will do the same for the bottom part and the same for the splitting surface. Okay, good. Now disregard this issue for the moment. Now this mesh is actually inverted, as you can see. So I would like to correct this. The Boolean command flips out because we are inverting the objects. And unfortunately in this case now I cannot, this is for example the split for the heel. This is the second part. This cannot have the same geometry, so I have to disconnect it, because when I say apply scale, you see now everything is set to 1. Okay. So even here, this has 4 users. I have to separate it. Then I can say apply scale, and you see when I apply the scale, the object is inverted. Then I can go into edit mode, Control N, correct it. So let's turn this off and this off. And for example, here we will turn this on, and you see that the correct result. Okay. So this means we have to do the same here with this part. So disconnect, apply the scale, go into edit mode, correct the normals, and there it is, all fixed. If we want now these 2 objects, then we can rejoin, Control L, and link the mesh data. But now I have basically a real left and a real right side for the sole. So this one still is cranky. So this is actually sole detail heel 001. Let's see who this one projects onto. There, this is wrong. So this is actually top. We can actually flip those, so difference and intersect. Yeah, okay. Now the result is correct. And then here say you project back onto this object now. Okay, good. These 1, 2, and 3 objects, we can parent back now to this object. Now even while this object is flipped, we just parented those to the flipped parent. So as you can see, they maintain their original rotation, and we are good. So for quicker positioning, etc., I will turn this one off, but actually keep this one on. for just rendering, and also zigzag line. Oh, hold on. What's this? Is the heel? Yeah, so this one should be visible, and with the other one we want maybe the structure added to it. So as you can see, I did a Boolean union. This will be added to it. So now I can select this one and much quicker move it around because it doesn't have to update the Boolean commands all the time. So maybe let's rotate this one, put it down, maybe turn on the camera so we can see how this looks. So maybe this one we would like to rotate this way and bring it to there. Ooh, whoops, where did it go to? No, you should remain there. And maybe this one we rotate a little bit there. And then you can basically pause them as you want. So maybe they can be stacked, or this can be in the background. Currently the shoes rests on its side. Question is, does it have to rest on its side? So if I now do a rendering and maybe I want to see everything split, so I can turn the split function on. There. Okay, let's save and let's render. So currently it does actually not add that geometry to it. So here, let's turn on this Boolean operation. And oh, what's happening here? Oh yeah, it makes sense because the values are inverted, so not really a good idea. So, you know, in this case, because we add something to the object, we can literally actually turn this one off. This will be fine. And simply this part here, we make visible to the camera because we just stick it in. And we don't remove a volume. This just has to have the correct material as well. So sole there. Okay, and then you can post them, position them as you want. Don't forget for the final rendering also to work with the color adjustment, so color management. So if we turn on the curves, maybe do a slight correction. That's a very simple way. We can also work with the exposure and the gamma, for example. And don't forget also about the camera films, which give a lot of nice contrast, which very often these renderings actually lack. You see, this is kind of grayish, and then with this we bring everything back. Okay, so that's kind of like the basic rendering and studio setup and posing in a nutshell. And again, to be really good at it or know what to do, don't waste time experimenting. Just take a photo and just be inspired by it and try to rebuild it. Pay attention to where are the shadows, where are the highlights, so you can understand maybe where the lights are, how big the lights are, and then this way you will have a much quicker and more satisfying render result.